What's up, everybody? It's Soundwave Spectre here. I'm doing something a little different today. Doing kind of a current events as it relates to gaming video. And before I sound insensitive at all, I deeply sympathize with the people of Ukraine, of course. The citizens are victims here. And of course, I also sympathize with the Russian people as well for their victims of the sanctions that are being put on them. It's not their fault that their government's being stupid. Just like everywhere, government sucks. So also brace yourself. This one might get a little political. So if that's not your thing, click the next video. Also, another great YouTuber who touched on this is Lucky Crit. I'll link his video in the description below. But let's look at the article. So let's take a look here. Nintendo indefinitely delays war game over invasion of Ukraine. Update and stops shipments to Russia. The Advance Wars remakes for Nintendo Switch won't come out in April after all. Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp no longer has a release date. Nintendo announced today it's pushing back the Switch's game launch as a result of Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The news comes as many other gaming companies have instituted bans of certain products in Russia as the humanitarian crisis continues to unfold. In light of recent world events, we have made the decision to delay Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, which was originally scheduled to release on Nintendo Switch on April 8th, Nintendo announced on Twitter today. Please stay tuned for updates on a new release date. A remake of the turn-based strategy game that originally came to Game Boy Advance back in 2001 and 2003 respectively, Advance Wars was revealed at E3 2021 and was previously set to come out last December before being delayed until this spring. The first game revolves around a war of aggression by a neighboring country that is later to be revealed to be the orchestrated plot of a separate group with the goal of weakening and destabilizing the world order, albeit in fictional countries. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, which began on February 24th and has so far resulted in the death of over 400 civilians, which has led other gaming companies to reconsider their plan as well. The Pokemon Company engaged in almost zero promotion for the livestream revealing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in the late February, out of respect to our global audiences. There were rumors Sony's State of Play livestream could be delayed, which we know didn't. That's in a stark contrast to how the gaming industrial complex has carried on apace during some other humanitarian crises. Other companies have directly condemned Russia's actions or taken steps to boycott the country, beginning with Cyberpunk 2077 maker CD Projekt Red. Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard, EA, Epic, and Ubisoft have all stopped the sale of new products in Russia, and some have pledged financial support to Ukraine. Gran Turismo 7 from the Russia PlayStation Store, but hasn't weighed in publicly. Nintendo also hasn't shared its public position on the conflict. Like many other gaming companies, the Switch manufacturer has a regional marketing office in Russia. However, Nintendo was forced to send the Russian Nintendo eShop into maintenance after third-party payments stopped being processed for the country. The company didn't immediately respond to a request for comment about whether it would take any further steps. Update. When asked for its position on the invasion, a spokesperson for Nintendo provided the following statement over email. While we have nothing to announce on this topic, we would like to express our concern for all those affected by the conflict. Reuters reports that Nintendo has stopped all shipments of new products to Russia, but for logistical reasons, new Nintendo Switches and games won't enter the country for the foreseeable future due to considerable volatility surrounding the logistics of shipping and distributing goods. And just like that, Nintendo single-handedly saved Ukraine. This is interesting. This is exactly what I said here. Wow, the world for real doesn't care about the constant wars against brown people. Europeans attacking each other, though. Let's pause the game release. I don't know how I feel about it. It's just odd as hell. Interesting point. And the game did not start with invading Ukraine, then maybe your complaint would have some merit, but Advance Wars is a direct parallel to current events. It's a direct parallel, maybe, but the game came out 21 years ago. And they're not changing the story at all. Well, I initially thought about it that, is there any direct comparison to the scale of what is going on and the circumstances? I'm not saying I agree with the delay, but this is the first, this could be World War III if things get even more out of hand moment in decades. I don't even know if that's true. It's just the one that we know about. Also, I mean, how narcissistic do you have to be to think that this war matters more just because it might affect you potentially on the other side of the world? War is always a terrible, terrible thing. The scale doesn't matter. So we got some different comments here, but this is the one that seems to be most people will be focusing on. It says, for anyone unfamiliar with the game, it opens with Blue Moon, the in-game faction equivalent and analogous to Russia USSR, invading a neighboring country. It's not just because it's a war game, it's explicitly because the narrative and themes are a bit too relevant right now. Again, reminder, this game was 21 years ago, and this game is not having its story changed at all, as far as we know. So this one, I want to highlight this comment here. This person said, that's a much better than Ma War, but I think it'd still be a lot more respectful to everyone, especially those fighting for their lives out there right now, to just put a good portion of proceeds towards well-regarded charities like the Ukrainian Red Cross. That's 100% better. That is exactly what I would say we should do. If you feel that strongly that you want to do something, instead of just saying pretending your old game doesn't exist and making a half-ass stance of just not releasing your game, I feel like putting the proceeds towards well-respected and established charities would be doing far more if that's the reason. If that's honestly the reason, there are going to be many people in Ukraine uncomfortable with imagery speaking. For those who don't understand, there are going to be many people in Ukraine uncomfortable with imagery depicting war, tanks, bombing. I'd imagine Nintendo doesn't want to contribute to any of that. That's ridiculous because there's war games literally every day. And I'm sure I think most Ukrainians have more important things to worry about than a fucking video game. Exactly. People pointed out on another article about whataboutism, whether they were using the term correctly or not, about the war was really a dangerous game to play, and judging by the comments here, it looks like the point out hypocrisy of America campaign is in full effect. While any sane person can understand that, yes, the West is very hypocritical when it comes to their own past regarding invasion conflicts, please remember that it is a tool of Russia and Russian sympathizers to ramp up whataboutism rhetoric online in order to diminish the outrage people feeling regarding Russia's actions in Ukraine. So even if you feel mildly outraged at the disproportionate response of the West towards the invasion of Ukraine versus other conflicts in the world, no, you feed the beast, the more power it gives Russian disinformation and discredit campaigns. That's not true at all. Having discontent with their useless pandering is not diminishing the Russian-Ukraine incident in war at all. They're completely separate. I mean, we're getting these takes from Kotaku, so not really surprised. Kotaku's kind of garbage. Remember when everyone was upset the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan and the government put in place collapsed by lunchtime? Then, like 3 days later, everybody in the West forgot about it. Russia has a lot of villainous street cred, as they were the bad guys in every 80s movie. But the world has also the attention span of a goldfish, tragically be occurring in Ukraine. But this game can be safely released by Memorial Day, and we'll be back to glorifying war. Good point. It's just interesting to me because, like that other guy said here, we had how many war games come out in the in the early 2000s? They were all war on terror based. No one gave a crap about that. The Advanced Wars here came out in 2001, as you can see, and Days of Ruin here. Days of Ruin is 2008, the most recent one prior, which honestly was my favorite, which is probably a hot take among the the Advanced Wars community. But I love that one. I like the more gritty realisticness. Here's all the wars going on in 2008. And here's ones with Russia also. Russian-Georgian War. Did they stop releasing Advanced Wars because of that then? No, it's kind of silly. It just really is just hypocritical. And it just shows you that the world just kind of focuses on whatever the media tells them to focus on right now, because there's been war games coming out every single year for all time, and there's been wars going on every single year for all time. We've never achieved global peace, so this feels fake. If they honestly wanted to do this, maybe they would change the story. maybe they would release a new one instead of the remake. It's just silly because this IP is pretty much dead at this point, and that sucks because I loved Advance Wars. And pushing it. Honestly, I probably wasn't even going to buy this game to begin with because I didn't like the art style that they're going with here. It's very bubbly and cutey, I guess. It just doesn't make sense. Let's read some more comments here. Yeah, here's a great. I mean, makes a lot of sense. This one, and with y'all developing the game, Ukraine is saved. Nintendo fans when they have to have empathy for other human beings in world events. My pain is constant. Yeah, no, but here we go. What about empathy for the Middle East? There's literally wars going on every single time. Empathy, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to say that, but exactly. I don't know. It's not an easy decision, but the right one. It's not. It literally does nothing. You're just saying, oh, maybe it's a little insensitive, but it's literally not. And I mean, here we are on, Twitter trying to look for reasonable takes, which is kind of hard to find. No, we can have an honest conversation. But what does it actually do? It doesn't really do it. That's funny. I disagree, but it's still funny. If anything, wouldn't the showing the invasion and you're defending against the Russians, wouldn't that bring, if anything, more awareness to sympathize with the Ukrainians? To me, this is like they're not going to release a Kirby game because childhood obesity is still an epidemic, but they still it doesn't make any sense to me. No, this one also says, yeah, you won't release a Kirby game. What's the reasoning? So let's look at this one. This person said, ridiculous. It's a fictional story, similarity to real world events taking place after it was written. Don't matter. And anyone who thinks it does needs psychological help to get past the maturity of a 5-year-old. So the first one says, doesn't the first game literally begin with the Russian equivalent invading another country? The whole game also makes fun of war in a jokey manner, which is fine normally, but maybe not when a serious version of the beginning is occurring. It just really doesn't make any sense to me that the timing would matter, because again, this happens all of the time. So if you don't want this story, the problem is the story of a neighboring country invading another neighboring country, you would have to change the entire story. And if the problem is the fact that it is Russian-esque versus Ukrainian, the parallels to the story and the issue will always be there. And there will always be someone who would think that it hits close to home. Unless you're going to wait 100 years till all the Ukrainians and Russians from this generation are dead and moved on and forgotten, it will always be too soon for them, will it not? And if the problem is just that it is a Russian invader, then that means you also think that the average person and all of your fans are that stupid. Essentially, Ubisoft right now, by this logic, should not release any Tom Clancy game because every single Tom Clancy game has Russia as the enemy. So if they want to stay apolitical and not talk about and touch any of this, they would pull it all off. They would stop their digital sales of anything where you fight a Russian. So any Ghost Recon. Here we go. Most pieces of media put something in the intro credits saying any similarity to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental, which also applies here. Why can't they do that? I agree. Here we go. The game is about effing war. It would be inept as F to release it now. Yet, people play Call of Duty and Battlefield every day, and no one cares. Exactly. It just doesn't make any sense that people pick and choose, and they're so easily manipulated to care now. But, maybe be anti-war all the time, if this is your honest stance. This is the best one I found so far. We've decided our Game Boy game that has war in the title that no one was going to spend $60 on will now be delayed. Not because we're removing Russia or planning on donating a portion of the profits to Ukraine or anything, just needed to virtue signal for free advertising. Please understand. I like this part too. Yeah, for free advertising, it's the biggest part. Advance Wars is a niche game as it is, so getting directly mentioned alongside current events is pretty damn publicity. Maybe that's the cynical way of looking at it, but that's what I see. That's what I think it is. Here's another one in regards to it being too soon. This remake is looking pretty soulless, and I didn't want it, but this sort of stuff has never made sense to me. If a game is offensive, isn't it always offensive? Not just when it's released near real events. It kind of resembles. We all know war is real. This feels like PR. It's very cheap. Here's another good thread. Nintendo does know that their games are disconnected from real life, right? The stuff going on isn't going to stop Call of Duty from coming out. Even the original Advance Wars 2 came out only a few months after America invaded Iraq. So why does this just free positive PR, I suppose? So why do this? Just free positive PR, I suppose. This person's like, "Oh, I love this. I love people who are like this. Why Nintendo do something when no one else does it? Like, bruh, the original was also delayed because of 9/11, and I think it came out before 9/11. I think it was one day prior. This is not new. Get off your high horse if you want to make your own difference in the world. Complaining about a game being delayed isn't it? Delaying a game isn't it either. Nintendo should get off their high horse too." Here, a decision that makes sense. It's rational and moral. No, disagree. There are wars constantly. This is just the latest war. If this is how they really feel, the game should never come out. Moral, yes. Rational, nah. I agree. It's actually a really stupid decision. Yeah. Dude, have a heart. That's what these people are just playing on empathy. They're not actually thinking logically about any of this, because if they did, all their arguments would fall flat. Dude, have a heart. It makes sense. I have a heart. I don't like how it's only important now. I don't like how companies jump on these things to score internet points. Wars are always happening and no one talks about them, but because the outcomes don't affect their homes. But wars keep happening. And everybody says, yes, there are similar ties. There are similar ties. But again, this happens all the time. Oh, here's a bad take too. No, not a war on this scale where a superpower tries to annex another one. Conflicts so far have been on a smaller scale, and it has a huge impact on the energy prices and the future of Europe. It's a big war with massive consequences on a geopolitical, economic level. So here we go. So there's a scale. Come on now. Are we saying one war isn't good enough? So yeah, this war, because it's on TV and scaring everyone, is instantly more important and more damning than all the other wars that have destroyed other people's lives across the globe. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not just because it's war, it's because one of the main enemies is applied heavily to be Russian. Well, if you're fighting them... Here we go. LMAO, guess games canceled until there are no wars going on. This is a terrible move. I know that we have to be in solidarity, but I don't think that moving a game would help that much in this crisis. I think the best way to help is to give them support, like a place to leave or supplies like food, clothes, etc. Not by delaying a game. Exactly. They're not actually doing anything this way. Here we go. This shit makes no sense. What's next? EA removing Command & Conquer Red Alert from their store pages? I'm going to pirate this. That's exactly it. Should I not play Company Heroes 2 because it's focused on the Soviet, the Eastern Front of World War II? Here's a great one. I'm sorry, but didn't Triangle Strategy just come out? It literally has the Dominion attacking another peaceful country. What? Because it doesn't have tanks? That's okay, I guess. From what I've seen, Triangle Strategy is a high fantasy game. Advance Wars is loosely based on realism, Soviet era symbolism. That's why. But it's not the setting. It's the pick. Like this guy's saying, it's not the setting. It's the pick, and it's the fact that it's pick and choose. If Nintendo really wanted to make a statement about support, they would donate 100% of the game to Ukraine in support. That's a little ridiculous. In support, not by delaying a fictional game because people think it's real life. I just feel like this is the, who made them the moral arbiters? And I hate where these people Get off your high horse. And I love Nintendo. I really do. I want to make that clear. I love Nintendo, and I hate war. I'm a staunch libertarian. Great day for a battle. Sure is, Andy. You want to go over ice cream? You go, heck yeah, pound it. That's pretty funny. It's either all okay or none of it's okay. It goes back down to the argument of to get on a high horse, free speech. When is a joke too soon to be said? When is a game too soon to be released? Who is the moral arbiter of when a game is allowed to exist? Again, this game shouldn't even apply to that because it's technically 21 years old. But I understand that things in Ukraine are quite difficult for so many people. Just don't understand why, if Middle Eastern countries have been at war for years, why does this situation matter now? Aren't we all worth the same? I really don't mean to offend anyone with this. And that's basically my whole point behind this entire video. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I found some good takes on Kotaku, actually. It's like, I doubt Nintendo is delaying a cartoon war game due to the Ukraine situation as a show of support to Ukraine is anything more but them not wanting to lose sales. Exactly this. It makes marketing more difficult, and they may lose a few sales because of it, but that's all they give a shit about. Here's another good point. How many people downloaded Plague Inc. in the first month of the pandemic? Now, they did put money towards pandemic research, but the point still stands. If they still plan to release the game, why not just do it now? This is such a weird decision because if they really cared that much, they'd outright cancel the release indefinitely with no future release date. And this guy said, probably to preempt the deluge of people writing angry tweets about how it's insensitive to release a war game when there's a war going on, while ignoring the reality of war has been constantly going on for some form forever. Sadly, there's a war going on every single year. Exactly. Some people actually. This is great. Okay, so this is a critical period for the whole world. I agree, but there has to be something we could do. I've got a Ukrainian flag emoji in my username online, and I'm posting videos of normal civilians experiencing horrific and senseless violence with captions like, "This guy is a snack." Useless posturing. I'm getting people to sign the petition to change the name of Russian dressing to bad Putin equals gay. How about ripping this Tolstoy in half? Now you got it. Yeah, see, these people are it's just useless posturing. This to me seems like maybe the death of Advance Wars. At what point could they now release this game? Certainly not in 2022. When will it come? When will it not be too soon? Depending on how long the conflict goes and outcomes, it may never be a PR. It may never not be a PR disaster to release the game, especially after already taking this stance. So I have no expectation of this coming out. Maybe the series could continue with tweaks to the nations and new installments, but to me, this is Nintendo's chance to just let the series die. Unfortunately for me, I love all games in the war series. I'm not surprised that this happened, but I was expecting the route they would take would be to release as planned, but have no marketing behind it. Thus would mean no ad campaigns, no press releases, no review copies, only searchable in the eShop, etc. That way they could recoup some of the dev costs and from any pre-order copies and still minimize the exposure of the game. It would probably mean the death of the series too, as sales performance, if this approach was taken, would not support the new entries. So in the end, it's a lose-lose situation for Nintendo. The approach they took probably has most upside by goodwill PR, knowing Twitter and Reddit, I'm sure. This giving the company, but I do not see Advance Wars surviving. This is unfortunate, as it is one of my favorite series. Fire Emblem will never fill that void for me. At least I still have Triangle Strategy, though. So, all right, this is a Twitter thread that I was here with my personal Twitter, my political Twitter. Don't follow that unless you want to see how crazy I am. But I had an actually decent conversation with somebody about this. So it says, this guy commented on the tweet, got a lot of traction. So you're basically just going to wait until everyone forgets about the conflict before release. You set yourselves up to never have a decent release window before this game. Might as well cancel it. We looked at that before. Not forget, but instead to avoid insensitively pouring salt into a freshly open wound. Too soon is a thing, and Nintendo made the right call. Some things are more important than a man-child crying about having to wait for his video game, because that's how you're acting right now. Now, I tried to come out a little bit, bring the alternative view here. I said, when is too soon not too soon, though? Like, who is the moral arbiter that decides when something is okay to talk about? Parody, joke about, etc. When is too soon not too soon, though? Devs started dropping War on Terror games almost immediately during the Middle Eastern conflicts of the early 2000s, and not one person batted an eye. Unfortunately, there will always be terrible war atrocities, so they might as well cancel the game if this is how they truly feel. And he responded, honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but my guess would be at least a few months to a year after this situation resolves, be it Russia withdraws or Ukraine falls, whichever comes first. And people have had some time to grieve and move on the best they can. I understand that these people are coming from a very empathetic point of view, but I feel like they're not thinking the next step forward here. Like I said, there will always be survivors, and would not the game be always a sore wound? Wouldn't it always be a too soon moment for them? Like, I get that there are Russian character designs, but I think this is pandering. I feel donating a portion of profits would have been far better to serve their point. And he actually agreed. He said that actually sounds like a great idea. If a large amount of the proceeds were donated, regardless of when it gets released, I hope they do that. And I said it would also bring awareness and and potentially sympathy for anyone who's maybe apathetic or unaware, considering you play as the side that gets invaded. Ignore my terrible grammar there. Ignore my terrible grammar there. And everybody's hyper focused on that the enemies look like they are Russian because they are inspired by Russians. But again, I like to think people are more intelligent than this. I just think it's much ado about nothing. Nothing here is going to help the people. This not existing is not going to help the people of Ukraine. This not existing is not going to help the citizens of Russia convince their government to stop. This is not going to do anything. It's just to look good on the internet and have people cheer you on Twitter and go, yes, queen. That's really about it. Maybe I'm just a cynic. Let me know in the comments below what you think, how wrong I am. Or if you agree. This is Soundwave Spectre, and thanks for watching.